of instinct disappeared. So you see, when we talk about an instinct for survival, what is this saying? What is the evidence for the fact that there is an instinct for survival? There is no evidence except that, in fact, people survive until they don't. And this is rather odd, because what happens to the instinct for survival when people don't survive? So, in this way, we find that when we try to explain some kind of behavior, some kind of activity, by supposing that there is a motivating force, sort of impelling spook, what is written is that we haven't described what's going on sufficiently clearly. Now let's go back to another way. When we try to describe anything at all, and think that we are describing something that, as it were, exists all by itself. As I've often said, we are so by the notion of stuff, you see, stuff acting, stuff doing things. And all that is that the world makes sense as being material until we examine it closely. In other words, a distant nebula in the heavens looks like a solid stone. Until you turn a giant telescope on it, and you make out the clear pattern of a star nebula. In other words, the concept of stone is a sensation that we get when we haven't examined things sufficiently closely, or when our instruments are not fine enough to penetrate what we're observing. But when the instruments are fine enough, what we get instead is pattern. And pattern is simply a form of behavior, of activity. Consider this in another way. Let's go back to the human organism and ask the question, well, what about its shape? How is it that a human organism is contained? All the organs are kept in by the skin. Well, we will describe, of course, the structure of the skin and how it is that it holds together. But then we'll soon find out that we're also talking about the surrounding air, which impinges upon the human skin with a pressure of about 15 pounds per square inch, so that if it weren't there, we'd explode. And also the question arises, what is keeping the organism in shape? And we find out that it is not only what is going on inside the skin that keeps it in shape, but also what's going on outside the skin. And when we go on to describe this still more carefully, we discover that it isn't quite correct to say that it is the air that is doing this, or that it is the organism that is doing this. We begin to describe instead what Dewey and Bentley, in their very fascinating book, Knowing and the Known, call a transaction. And that is to say, a player can't buy unless somebody is also selling. You can't know anything unless there's something to know. And this fact, you see, is constantly overlooked. That anything in the world, whether it's inanimate or animate, whatever it may be, is there by virtue of being in a transactional relationship, not with something else, but with everything else. A human being, of course, has ever so many relationships. They're very complicated. The person, say, we call a doctor, is not only related to his actual work of doctorate, but he may be also a father related to family, he's a citizen related to a community in other ways than as the doctor, and so on and so forth. And so we begin to imagine him, as it were, apart from his relationships, as a sort of person, and therefore in some way different. But this, you see, creates a ghost. It creates a being independent of all the different relationships in which he finds himself. Whereas, frankly speaking, he is inseparable from them. We can't eliminate them. We can only describe them fully as the entire whole complex. So, in other words, every organism could be called the behavior of the field or environment in which it is found. Now, this doesn't mean that the organism is something pushed around by the environment and is completely passive and inert, and that everything that it does is simply a response to external stimulus. Because in a way, the organism is part of itself. After all, it is an object process in nature, in the cosmos, just as much as everything in its environment. There is really no way of separating the two. Instead of thinking, as it were, in this terminology of doers and hunters, attackers and victims, we simplify things considerably. Just by confining ourselves to a description of what is happening. As we do this, we get a peculiarly clarified picture of the world without losing focus. And it is in this way that we also begin to be able to have a preliminary intuition or sensation of the meaning of the fact that life is not a problem. In other words, not a cause between ourselves and our environment. This reception of life can be basically true. Is without purpose. That's a profound phrase. Say, well, there's no future in it. What's the use? No, we say, what's the use? We need very much to realize that that question reflects our insanity. What's the future? What's the use? The joy of what the Taoist is that things have no use. The future is not important. Who would say that? Oh, surely all this is nonsense. Which is correct. The universe, is a kind of ba-doody-da, 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 and going on in this fantastic way. There is no absolute standard of great or small, of important. Small things are as big things can be, and big things are as small things can be. You cannot have tops without levels. You cannot have failures without successes, and vice versa. You cannot have the good and the valuable in life without and also you cannot have life without death. Everything can be looked at as great or small, important and unimportant, and all the steps between. So in the same way, where does the circle start? The circle of life, the cycle of life. The interdependence of the bees and the flowers. The interdependence of long and short, you see, it's all circular. And so there is nowhere, and there is everywhere, that it can begin. We are a single field of process, or what is sometimes called a transaction. In other words, the fact that the sun is light is the result of my nervous system. My nervous system turns the sun into light. And the sun would not be light unless my nervous system, your nervous system, made it so. So, in a way, you make the world. At the same time, your nervous system is in the same physical world as the sun. To know that you are God is another way of saying that you feel completely with this universe. You feel profoundly rooted in it and connected with it. You feel, in other words, that the whole energy which expresses itself in the galaxy is intimate. It is not something to which you are a stranger, but it is that with which you, whatever that is, are intimately bound up. That in your seeing, your hearing, your talking, your thinking, your moving, you express that which it is which moves the sun to the sun. And if you don't know that, if you don't feel that, well, naturally you feel alien. You feel a stranger in the world, and if you feel a stranger, you feel wonder. Therefore, you start to pull those things about, to beat it up, and try and make the world submit to your will, and you become a real troublemaker. This is the challenge. Music can be used as a meditative technique. Music isn't enough. Mean it? So can you get back again to recollect in events you would call entirely meaningless? That you could listen to a sound like metal and it goes boing, 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 boing. That's fascinating. That's all it is. If you really get with boing, you can see the whole universe in boing. When one remembers how fascinating the most ordinary everyday things are for children.
The excellence of driving at Buick is matched by Focus, the dealership experience of Buick. Get this ultra-low mileage lease on this 2024 Encore GX Preferred for around $343 per month with zero due at signing.
me get to thinking of everything in terms of survival and profit value. Then, the shapes of scratches on the floor cease to have magic. Most things, in fact, cease to have magic. But so likewise with a candle flame, with a reflection, with grain in wood, anything. From this giant point of view, be completely fascinating. It's a amusing arrangement to make to continue the process of life through different individuals, and it is always with the same individual. Because each new individual is for you. And there comes a point when you have to say, I'm sorry, but taking up the responsibility for anyone. There is no way. This is the way of that surrender. And then the curious thing, that of course is the most existence doesn't have to go on any longer than vegetative continuity is of no value. It follows from that, you see, that if anyone else let this be as one to die, we would understand the mystery of life. Death is in a certain sense, the problem.
These clowns star of movies like Dumb and Dumber and Grinch. Wait till you see this. The real Jim Carrey.
I wanted to focus on the real thing. I think everyone understands this feels a little bit. Fame is a very bizarre thing you can't understand unless you get it. You can want to walk on the moon all you want when you're a little kid, but then when you go there, you gotta have a suit and you gotta have hair and everything like that. It's not a place to live. You have essentially, you know, the physical Starting at age 10, I found myself sneaking behind my parents' back to look at the P word on the internet just before Sunday morning services, and I thought this would just go away as I matured. I found myself in my mid-20s, going into my 30s, married, going to Sunday morning services, and then coming home and sneaking behind the boys. The P word. I struggled with this resist, fail cycle over and over until I discovered the real reason why I'm bringing with this just as much as I want this. That's what I should.
He's the actor and comedian beyond earth, who outrageous obstacles being Ace Ventura to his lifelike depiction of Andy Kaufman in that movie. Jim Carrey provides something that everyone can resonate with. Although he may seem carefree, larger-than-life comedian, there's a deeper side to Jim that is profound and unexpected, particularly its motivation behind acting.
I act because I love him. Pieces. And acting gives me a chance to reconfigure those pieces into 1,000 different things that are positive for people to watch. Every trauma, and I could, build a ladder to the stars with the things that have happened, with the things that were good, but they've all turned into something real for you. The worst injury I've ever had, I went to the art studio and I made a painting. And I sat there and I went, I wish people could be here to see what that process was. It's to an artist when they get hurt. They don't